All right. Happy Friday, all.
Happy Friday.
We are live. This is
Welcome.
welcome. This is the Friends with Benefits podcast. Obviously, I'm Justin. This is Pansy. At some point, I'm probably just going to stop introducing us because people are just going to be like, yeah, no kidding. We know who you are. Get on with it. Um, how are you doing, Pansy?
Better now.
Better now? Well, it's good to have you here. I'm good. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks. Yeah, good to see
And
you too.
I So I came up with this episode title and name because I've been doing a lot of just sort of me work, mindset stuff, that kind of thing. And I found a guy online. He calls himself the Mindset Mentor, and he's actually really good. He's got a huge following. I'm envious of his following, but he it's because he's good at what he does. He's good and he's genuine, and he followed a lot of these principles, and so he likes to share it with people, and I'd like to share it with you guys because I'm implementing these things, and they are actually starting to have an impact on me. And obviously, I've talked about this before, but you can only share things based on your experience of them. So I'm going to be talking about it from my experience of it essentially. But if you guys implement these things, I promise you, if you implement these things, they will change your life for the better. So and by the way, I'll put his link in the description for anybody listening after the fact. But something that's going to hit a little bit different today. If I were to ask you, if I were to say, if I followed you around for a full week, like a documentary crew, shadowing, your day to day, I'm pretty sure I could predict at least the next few years of your life, right? Just
Possibly.
possibly. And it's not because I have a crystal ball, but because, and again, I'm guilty of this, but our daily habits, your daily decisions, the way you talk to yourself, the way you show up when nobody's watching you, all of that is essentially writing your future in real time. And that actually, I'm essentially parroting some of the things that he's said, and it's because it hit me kind of hard when I was listening to it. But the life you have right now is essentially the product of the principles that you live by. Um, Whether you choose them intentionally or, maybe like a lot of us, we got encoded into us by parents, you know, grandparents, friends, things like that, or whether you just have them by default, whatever it is. Today we're gonna kind of talk about five principles. I've shortened this thing up to five principles, because I one I it's just easier to remember this way, and quite frankly, and two, to me it makes more sense to kind of combine them and talk about them in this way. So that's what I'm gonna do. They're five principles, but essentially, the first one, and we can talk about this. This is an open discussion, Pansy. This is an open discussion between me and you. I don't want it to just be me rambling crap off the whole time. But the first principle is radical ownership. And for me, I don't know how you implement this. I know you implement this because I don't hear you blaming necessarily a lot of people for things sometimes, and we both do this sometimes still. You know, things happen, people behave a certain way, stuff happens to us, but regardless, even if we do sometimes blame other people for what's going on in our life, I see you and I both, regardless of all of it, we take ownership of where we're at, and we're going to continue to be consider we're going to continue to show up regardless, right? But what do I mean by radical? It's not partial ownership. It's not the like, yeah, it's mostly on me. It's literally no excuses. Everything is on me. I'm going to say something with, like, honestly, with no judgment, but at some point in our lives we have to grow the fuck up. Excuse my French, but we have to grow up. Not age-wise, I'm talking mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally, right? We have to grow up. And
Yeah, you're not wrong, but it's not like you're immediately grown. You know what I'm saying? We go in stages
Yeah,
over a lifetime, right? We learn new
100%.
things, and even the concept of mindset and this and that, that was new to me, you know, um, in my 40s. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about?
Well, think
Right?
about
Like,
that. Think about that for a second.
yeah,
And there's a lot of these things that were new to me. Not I shouldn't say new to me, but like hadn't thought about them for a long time, which means that we were essentially operating on default mode, right? Or operating on the encoding that was imprinted on us by our upbringing or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like that's not our fault. What is our fault is if we know that we want something more, we know we're trying to achieve something bigger, and we decide to stay behaving the same way, right? Because it's just you can't have both. You can't have this picture of the perfect life or the perfect situation and stay the same person. I wish there in a lot of ways, I wish there could be a way to do that, but there really just isn't. It's just not possible. Because the life that we want or the success or whatever it is that you want, and success means something different to everybody. But whatever it is that you're striving for, you have to change first. That's the thing that like nobody really tells you initially is you have to change first. You have to be that person before you get there.
well, yeah, yeah. But let's not like make it sound like you have to change essentially who you are, right? Like
Mm,
just your thinking and maybe how you approach things, and the things that you are putting your energy into,
yeah.
right?
Well, you have to change, and I'm not saying to cut out the good things about you. That's not what I'm trying to say. There's good and I'm talking about our habits, the way we mentally you know,
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, when you say, see, like mindset and change, those are very vague. And that's why, like, I didn't understand what the heck people were talking about. I'm like, what do you mean? I
mhm,
busted my butt and taken care of myself and my family and da da da
mhm.
this. And you're telling me after all of this, I have a bad mindset? What? You know,
It's
like,
not, look, and again, like I wouldn't use it in terms of good and bad. I would
oh,
use it
yeah,
in,
true. I mean, yeah. But either way, you know what I'm saying? You're
yeah,
like, after like changing so many things in my life already and doing certain things, right?
yeah.
And
You're
there,
like,
I'm
God,
still,
I have to change again. You're
I'm
telling me I have
like,
to change again?
I'm like, what's up? What do you mean about the mindset thing? Like,
Yeah,
it took a while to realize what it was about.
yeah.
Um, so and it's about many things. Like
Hmm.
you said about the conditioning that we don't even realize is there.
Hmm. But that's where at a certain point when I say to grow up, like we all have to hit this point if we really want to achieve the things we're going after. But a lot of people, including myself, for a lot of people, like we haven't gotten to that point yet. Even though we think we may have gotten to that point, we think we're grown up or whatever. If you're not taking full ownership of where you find yourself in your life, because again, our lives right now, where we are, is a result of the decisions that we've made, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, right?
Yeah.
So radical ownership essentially is looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I am at the place where I'm at because of me. Even if that's not 100% true. This is what people don't get. Even if that's not even 100% true, you have to start taking that kind of radical ownership of it, because what it does is it literally forces you to think about decisions you're making differently, and forces you to think about the changes that you actually do have to make in order to get where you're trying to get to, instead of, because again, nobody is coming to help you. Nobody's
Yeah.
coming to save you. I shouldn't say nobody's coming to help you. There's people to help you, but nobody's coming to save you, right?
Yeah.
So the blame, and again, break this down. I could talk about like radical ownership for the full hour, but essentially the blame, we talk about the blame transfer problem. Actually, this is the Mindset Mentors, some of his talking points that I'm going to bring up here. But over and over again, people know they're responsible for their lives. Like intellectually, they get it, right? We all kind of get that. But knowing it and acting like it are two completely different things. And I'm 100% guilty of this. So, because the moment something goes wrong, the first instinct for most of us, and honestly, again, guilty as charged, first instinct for a lot of us is to look outward. The market shifted, a partner let me down, somebody did this, the economy's bad, whatever. Someone's holding me back, my boss is holding me back. The time the timing wasn't right, or I'm trying to think of every possible
There's
thing,
so
but
many
you get it.
excuses
You
that,
get
yeah,
it. Here's the
yeah,
thing
for
though,
sure.
right? But here's the thing, it's like some of those things might be completely true. They might be 100% true. The market does shift. People do let you down. Like we've dealt with it. People ghost you. People don't communicate. We're waiting for this thing or that thing, waiting on this person or that person. It doesn't matter. Every time we blame someone else or something else, outside of ourselves, um, you're essentially handing that power off to that thing or to that person. That's the mindset shift that has to happen. It's like it's literally power. You're handing that power to someone else. You're giving that power up. So you're literally saying that thing controls my life, not me. And once you do that, you're stuck, basically. Because you can't change what you don't own. You can't change what you don't control, right? And are there things that are going to be completely out of our control? 100%. Like stuff's going to happen. A hurricane could hit, a freaking tsunami, like there are things that are going to happen, an illness, right? In the family or just life continues to happen, but we've got to reframe it. We've got to put it in the frame of like, what can I do differently? Like, right? How is it my responsibility to change in this situation and take ownership of it? So when I finally internalized this, and I mean really actually internalized it, and not just kind of nodded at it, I felt like it felt like getting power back. It really, in a sense, because now I'm not depending on outside forces that are just kind of pulling me around willy-nilly. Like it's up to me, right? So and again, I'm going to say this again, nobody is coming to save you. But ultimately that means that's freedom, really. That you should look at it as you're getting power back and you're getting freedom back, because that means the ceiling is ours to set on our lives. That's ultimately that's kind of the message, really, if you will. The ceiling is ours to set on our lives. So radical ownership. And again, we could talk about childish versus, being childish, being versus growing up, and all of these things, but I'm not going to go super deep into it. We get it, right? It's literally look at yourself. Where is it your responsibility to make the change? And actually, a good friend told me the other day, it's like of all the things, it's really doesn't have to be that complicated. When you talk about ownership, taking ownership of your situation, like just doing what you say you're going to do, like that simple thing. Like how many people have we run into, Pansy? It's like if you just do what you say you're going to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're guilty ourselves too, on
Oh, and don't
things.
get me, yeah, 100%. Actually, don't get me wrong there. This is one of the biggest things for me too, and biggest changes that's starting to take place is like, look, even if I can't, because stuff does happen, stuff comes up. I work in cybersecurity, so it's like I set a schedule, and if I get pulled into something, I don't have a choice right now, at least right now. But I'm at least trying to communicate and letting people know and rescheduling, right? As much ahead of time as I possibly can. I'm not just ghosting people. Hang on one second. So anyway, the real world application here is in real, especially in real estate investing, you're going to get punched in the face by deals that go sideways, contractors that disappeared, sellers who aren't honest, markets shifting, all these things, right? And then there's two types of investors in those moments. The first type points outward. The contractor was bad. The seller lied to me. The second type looks inward and says, what did I miss in the underwriting? What due diligence did I skip? What could I have structured differently? Uh, the second one gets better, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get better. The first one just gets bitter and eventually quits. That's what happens. So, anyways, radical ownership, the principle number one, because without it, none of the other stuff even really matters. So if you're not taking ownership of your situation, of your life, of your current situation, then none of these other things are really going to matter that much. So anyway, I don't know. How do you feel about that? I think you pretty much spoke your mind on that, but
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted.
that's all right. That's
uh,
all right. So principle number two is clarity kills confusion. This one actually, I've been really working on this one. Uh, and when I talk, and again, I call it clarity kills confusion, but I'm really connecting two separate ideas here. The first part of this is alignment. And what do I mean by alignment? I'm talking about knowing exactly who you are and where you're going. The second is minimizing decisions. And I'll talk about both these things, but getting aligned is most people are working hard towards nothing specific. And again, guilty as charged. Like, here's a question. What do you actually want? I have gotten to the point now where I'm getting up in the morning, and part of my morning routine is to literally sit there and visualize what I want and where I'm going. And I'm not just talking about like some people are really bad at visualizing. Some people are just not very good at visualizing. And and I'm good at visualizing, but what I'm really talking about is actually experiencing the thing. Bring up the emotions. The guy I'm kind of quoting some of his stuff, literally talks about he wanted to move him and his wife to Italy to live in Italy. And so he would get up and he would literally sit on his back porch and have the sun on his face. And he was trying to picture getting up in Rome, walking down the street to a coffee shop and getting a cup of coffee and sitting on the out in front of the coffee shop with the sun on his face and drinking his coffee. And so he would just sit in his back porch and he would make his coffee and he would just sit there on his back porch and visualize it as much as possible to the point where he could like, you'd smell the coffee, taste the coffee, feel the sun on his skin, like visualizing this thing and to the point where it gets so drilled into your brain of what you want of where you're going that you have to get there as fast as you can. And the reason this is so important, and I didn't understand this for a while until, well, a little while ago, but I didn't understand this for the longest time. But a lot of us are going around thinking, I just need more discipline. I need to force myself to do these things. I need to get these things done. And there's nothing wrong with discipline. But when you're forcing yourself to do something, it takes a lot of energy. Shoot, making decisions takes a lot of energy, and the more decisions you're fighting against, the more energy you're expending. But when you have a clear visual, like to the point where you've felt it, like you've experienced it in some sense already, that pulls you towards that thing. In other words, again, like the host of this YouTube channel that I'm talking about, like he talks about it. He's like, it literally at a certain point I would get up and I'm just like, we have to get there as fast as possible. And I need to do whatever it is that I need to do to get us there as fast as possible. And so that drive gets pulled out of you instead of you forcing yourself all the time and thinking like you have to have all this discipline and you've just kind of like got to brute force your way through stuff. Having that visualization, having that again alignment of who you are and where you're going um pulls that drive out of you. without you having to force it. And it takes, and even he talks about it, it took him a little while. It took him, probably a month of doing this. Like it eventually really sinks in because you're literally tricking your brain, or you're no, I shouldn't even say tricking your brain. You're training your brain to get into an alignment of who you are and where you're going. And that motivation comes from that, which is really interesting. So, and again, a lot of people, if you were, do you think, Pansy, if you were to walk around and ask people what they want, do you think most people could tell you what they want with like real clarity? Some people maybe, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah, I think most people don't know. I think most people are, I think most people could probably give you a solid answer of the things they don't want, but of what
That's,
they,
yeah,
yeah,
that's how we get started though. But
yeah,
it's so easy to know the things that already didn't work,
yeah,
you know? So we're
yeah,
like, okay, I'm not doing that again,
yeah,
right? Kind of
yeah,
thing. But you don't necessarily have it always clear in your head. Well, what's next?
yeah.
You know, you have an idea, maybe like a general idea, but nothing clear necessarily.
Nothing really clear,
Like
right?
I don't have anything clear. Like I know I want to travel
Yeah.
and I'm building a business, right? That to bring people together for, to help each other, right?
Hmm.
Um, Beyond that, I don't really have it mapped out. Like, I don't know. I thought I had it mapped out before and it didn't work.
Well, and maybe that's why like this is why this is so important. This is why it's starting to become more and more important to me as a part of my daily routine. But like having that visualization and getting into alignment of where you want to go and who you want to be is so freaking important. Like, and again, I've heard this so many times and I've been like, yeah, 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 yeah. But it's starting to sink in of just exactly how important it is because again, again, people can tell you like I know what I don't want. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be stuck in a job that I hate. I don't want to stress. I don't want stress and chaos. It's like, okay, but that's not a direction, right? That's just avoidance is really what that is, right? So you
But you got to
can't
talk
build,
about that sometimes in order to get to the parts that you want,
sure.
you know? And I don't think you have to know, I don't think you have to necessarily have a clear vision. Not everybody thinks in the same, I guess, way as time and all of that. So to say
Mhm.
should or whatever, I get where you're saying for business, if you're trying to build something and, have a better life, yeah, there's definitely some steps that you do need to do and have somewhat of a vision of how or what you want to do that, right? I guess how. Yeah. So
I'm not saying that you need to have completely a complete vision of your necessarily your business, although that helps. I'm talking about you, where you want to be, like where you want to go and where you're trying to get to. What is that ultimate destination for you? As in your your
yeah, you're
life,
not gonna like my answer.
like your
But
life,
anyways,
but a beginning, like this is why things maybe aren't working because you don't have that clarity because
my
again, you're just
destination, we're all on a journey that eventually ends in death.
well,
My
that's a
destination
pretty
is,
macabre way to look at it. Yeah, sure, but
is
we're all going
everywhere.
towards
It's a
death.
journey.
Yeah, we're all going towards death, but you don't want to that's not what you want to be focused on. And thinking about the things you don't want is good, but again, it's and let me re-spotlight this, but it is really good, but that's an avoidance technique. It's not you can't build, how should I say this? You can't build a meaningful future by running away from things. Like you build it by running towards something. That's the most important
Who
part here.
says it's running away from stuff?
Avoidance is running away from stuff. Avoidance is avoid.
Avoidance is.
Yeah, but
But
always
what it,
thinking about the things that you don't want, always thinking about the things that you don't want, what your brain does is it starts looking for those. That's what we don't understand about the human brain, or most people don't understand about the human brain, is if you're constantly training your brain to think about the things you don't want, now you're coming from a
yeah,
place of
nobody said
lack.
anybody was constantly thinking that way though.
I'm just trying to make a point here. I'm not saying anybody is per se. What I'm saying is if you are constantly thinking about the things you don't want, and by the way, a lot of people do think that way. A lot of people do think about like the things they don't want, and so you're coming from a place of lack in that mentality.
Yeah, I know. I already said that.
Okay. So, well, I didn't hear you say that. So you need to have a North Star, in other words. You have to have a clear destination, everything else, every investment you look at, every business decision, right? Every opportunity that comes across your desk filters through that North Star. It also helps with the decision-making process because if you know where you're trying to get to, you know who you're trying to be, like there's no decision. It's like, oh, I'm this person, I'm going this direction. So like this thing on my desk here, there's no decision about this. Like I'm either interested or I'm not, right? So that's kind of the point of this, right? Of having that vision. I'm curious why what do you talk to me a little bit more about this? Why do you not think you need to have a vision of where you're going?
Mm, I didn't say that. Never mind.
Okay, I'm just curious. I'm
I
trying
didn't
to,
say that. I didn't
okay.
say that. But
Okay. Well,
anyways,
you believe it's not maybe I'm just trying to understand. You believe it's maybe not that important to have like a full clear
exactly.
vision. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, I'll just agree to disagree on that one, but it's for me, it's and again, I can only speak from my experience. It's everybody's different, right? Everybody's journey is different, everybody's experience is different, but for me, what's really, really helped is having that clear vision in my mind of where I'm going. Because again, if you get anything from this, just having that where you can visualize something to that degree, um, and again, it doesn't have to be all visuals, like the emotions you feel from it, like trying to almost experience it, it pulls you towards that thing. So instead of always trying to expend energy being disciplined and forcing things out, that clarity will pull you towards that thing. So anyway, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about identity. But the identity component, and this is where I skipped this as well, by the way. You don't just need to know where you're going, but you also need to know who you are, who you need to become in order to get there, right?
I suppose.
Um, and again, you can tell me how you feel about this, because the version of you that exists right now might not be capable of achieving it. The thing you say that you want, right? Because you have to build that person first in your mind. Uh,
Mm,
think about your future self as a complete character. And again, I'm quoting a few things here, but what does that person believe about themselves? How do they handle pressure? What time do they wake up? How do they respond when deals fall apart? What decisions do they make automatically without negotiating with themselves? Map it out. Think about think about where you're going, that place, that destination, or that perfect life situation, whatever it is, and then think about the person you are in that thing, in that situation. Um, but get specific. And this is where, like, again, this is challenging even for me, but get specific. And then this is key. Start stepping into that version of yourself every single day, not waiting until you arrive, but actually acting like it now. And again, we've heard this talked about before, but that part of it I skipped. Like I've had kind of the at least at first it was a fuzzy vision of what I wanted to be or where I wanted to go. But then also the vision of myself in that destination. Like, did I have that vision of myself? And I didn't for a long time. Um, but anyways, this is what causes most people's inconsistency, right? They've got multiple identities fighting for control inside their own head. The disciplined version of you versus the comfortable version of you. Something that, and you can tell me how you feel about this, Pansy, but like if you're choosing comfort now, you are affecting you're choosing a harder time in the future. Does that mean that all the time right now? No. I'm not, and again, I'm talking in generalities here. Every time you choose comfort right now, you're affecting your future self. No, of course not. Like there's certain things, you, you need to choose a comfortable bed so you get sleep. That's not going to take away from your future self. There's many examples of this, but when we talk about being, consistent and becoming that person who's going to be able to get to that place, if you're choosing comfort, you're choosing to watch YouTube videos, you're choosing to veg out as opposed to maybe working another hour or two on the thing that you're trying to achieve, that is affecting your future self. And this
Yes.
is what causes most people's inconsistency. They've got multiple identities fighting for control inside their own head. The disciplined version versus the comfortable version, the focused version versus the distracted version, right? The investor version versus the consumer version. We go on, right? That internal tug of war doesn't just create inconsistency, it honestly exhausts you because you're constantly second guessing yourself. You're constantly we do this anyways. We're making these decisions every day. And it's like, we're constantly thinking about should I do this thing? Should I do that thing? What's going to happen if I do this thing? Or what are people going to think about me if I do this? All those decisions that we're making on a day, they're exhausting. They take energy away from you. So you need to have one dominant identity, the one future self that sort of runs the show, if you will. Other voices are going to pop up. They always do. And I know they do for me, but your job is to step back into that dominant version of yourself. Like, no, this is who I am. This is what I accept. This is what I do. And so there is no decision there, right? And that's, again, this is what, when we get into talking about decision minimalization, like lessening the decisions that you have to make on a day-to-day basis. And actually, there was an article a while ago about talking about Jeff Bezos and how he literally makes three big decisions on a daily. He only makes up to three big decisions on a daily basis. And obviously we don't have billions of dollars and all this, but like what can you do in your life to shrink down the freaking cacophony of decisions that you're trying to make on a daily basis, right? And sometimes you look, at least in the beginning, especially, sometimes you can't. There's not those decisions are going to have to get made, and they have to get made by you. So sometimes, like, right, can you delegate? Or, if you know where you're going and who that person is that eventually is going to be in that place, what decision would they make? And then you're spending less time second guessing yourself, if that makes sense. So anyway, so here's the two ideas that connect in a way that completely changed how I actually think about productivity. When you have a strong, clear identity, and this is why like that part was still is challenging in a sense, but when you have that clear identity, when you genuinely know who you are and what you're trying to build, it eliminates entire categories of decisions automatically, and that matters more than most people realize. So if you're not tired from doing things, right, you're going to be tired from deciding things. And that's where this, again, having this clarity on who you are um is really important. But, every decision your brain makes requires predictions. So it's calculating outcomes, weighing risks, modeling scenarios that burn actual real energy, believe it or not. And most of us are running our days in a constant low grade state of decision fatigue. I know that's real for me, 100%. The average person makes hundreds of micro decisions a day, and most of that mental energy is being burned on things that should already be decided. I'm going to repeat that. The average person makes hundreds of micro decisions a day, and most of that mental energy is being burned on things that should already be decided. Think about the internal negotiations that you run every day. Should I work on should I work out this morning or do it later? Is this the right deal to pursue? Should I post this or not? What are people going to think? What if it fails? That loop is constantly running in us, and it costs you focus, clarity, and energy. And you could be putting that energy towards things that actually move the needle. Um, so anyways, that's the point of that. No, I'll repeat them. So the first one is radical ownership, right? We talked about that, like literally getting real and taking ownership of where you're at, and it's not anyone else's responsibility. It's not outside influences fault or any of that. Like, where do you land in this? Where can you take ownership? Essentially, you take ownership of everything at that point. Radical ownership is literally taking ownership of everything. Um, Despite the fact that there are outside influences potentially causing issues, which is definitely true. But principle two was clarity, right? So visualizing where you want to go and that identity that you want to embody that's going to be in that place eventually when you get there. Who is that person that is living in that world, right? And sort of experiencing that identity. Then principle three is habit stacking. And I will go through this one relatively quickly, but we talked about owning your life and building an identity and minimizing decisions, right? Trying to minimize as much as the decision making process as you can by living into that identity. So knowing who you are, like you're going to limit second guessing yourself. But we need to talk about the actual mechanism of habit stacking. And this one's it's not rocket science per se, but it really is about attaching new habits to things you're already doing. That's really what we're talking about when we talk about habit stacking. And I'm still learning this process. I'll just give you a quick example. I walk the dogs in the afternoon. So when I'm here working, I have to, at some point I've got to take my dogs for a walk. Um, and what I do is I'm already up walking. I'm taking through walk. I'm being active. So as soon as I bring them back to the house, I then go and do my workout. I've stacked my workout time and the workout is only a 30-minute workout, but I've stacked my workout on the end of that because I'm already up, I'm already active, and there was a spot in my day that I could tack that onto, that habit. And the
I thought you were
result.
going to say something along the lines while you're walking your dog, you did some local errands because
Mm-mm.
that to me is habit stacking.
That is though. That's the same
Like I
idea.
used to do stuff like that. I mean, I still do stuff like that. Like I try to combine things,
Yeah.
errands, and, like things that could work together as much
Yeah.
as possible. If
Yeah.
you're going upstairs and you need to bring something,
Yeah.
up, take it with you. If you see something that needs to go down,
Yeah.
like putting stuff next to the stair. There's like different things if you like, you know, you call it task switching. I don't.
Yeah, and in fact, one of our friends here, James, is on the show right now, has joined us. But he says you use. I'll bring this back to the mental energy part, but you use 20% of your mental capacity just functioning. But to your point, Pansy, that's 100%. Like I 100% agree with you. What you're saying is exactly. Now, obviously, errands are one thing, but like if you're really trying to build a new habit, like think of kind of your day and what you're doing throughout your day. Is there a part in your day? Because again, everybody focuses on like the new habit. Oh, I want to work out an hour a day. It's like I'm going to build this habit. I'm going to focus on doing that habit, but that's not how habits work.
You need something to get you
Yeah,
rolling. And that's
yeah,
where, like, what helped with
yeah.
me is my vitamins because
Ooh, I like that.
they do it a three-part system,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I like that.
So the first part is your capsules,
Hmm.
and you have to wait like 20, 30 minutes or so before you take your shake.
Hmm.
And then the third part is a patch if you use it that gives
Okay.
you energy all day, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So I keep it by my bed, right? Like my
Hmm.
capsules,
Hmm.
and I drink my full thing of water, right? Because
Hmm.
you want to drink it with a full thing of water.
Hmm.
And then I know I have to get up and get moving when that water's done. to make my shake. And
Mhm.
then now you're up, right?
Yeah.
And you're moving, so you may as well just keep going.
And you do your yoga and whatnot at that point, right? Is that kind of like when you get out
I
and do?
try to, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
shortly after that.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
like if
It
you
builds,
start
one
kind
thing
of,
builds on the other.
it's momentum that gets you going.
Mhm. I actually like that. That's a good example too. That's exactly it. Because again, you don't build habits in isolation. If you're just focused on doing the habit and you're just kind of doing it and focusing on that in isolation by itself, that's not how you actually build a habit. You got to stack it on to something else. And then all of a sudden it becomes part of your day. That's how it works, right? And so that's actually really helped me because my day, as the day winds down towards the end, I find myself getting tired, right? And so I'm looking to add a habit that's going to help me build my energy back up even towards the end of the day so that I can spend those last few hours. Oh, we lost Pansy. But so we can spend those last few hours you know, doing what me doing what I need to do. So let me. Sorry, guys. Hang on one second. Sorry, we lost Pansy here. Oh, no, she's
Yeah.
back. You're back. You're back.
Sorry.
No, you're
My
good. You're good.
my internet's not working well.
Yeah, you're good. That's
I
all
had to
good.
go to hotspot.
Yeah, but that's all good. We can edit it out later. But anyways, yeah, I'm looking at habits and building habits, things that I can do to boost my energy so that I get that boost of energy towards the end of the day too. One of those things is actually, believe it or not, working out. You get a boost of cortisol. You get like whenever I work out, I get energy for usually a few hours. I'm like kind of hyped up for a few hours afterwards. So I'm working on fitting in maybe another smaller workout towards the end of the day to help me boost that energy back up again. But you get the idea. You get the
Yeah,
idea.
well, that's
Habits.
where your walk comes in handy too.
Yeah.
You do
Yeah.
your workout earlier and then your walk in the afternoon or vice versa, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I usually try to do my yoga and like go for a walk or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not just one. So,
Yeah. Let me give you a quick morning chain and walk you through like actually what this looks like. So your
is
trigger
it
is.
quick? Those were like,
Yeah, it's relatively quick. So like your trigger is literally waking up, something that happens every single day, regardless. Like you wake up, and then from there you get up and brush your teeth. That's already in your routine, let's say, right? Brushing your teeth is already in your routine. After brushing your teeth, you immediately drink a full cup of water, right? After the water, you start your coffee, and while the coffee brews, and here's where it gets good, you drop down and do 100 push-ups, let's say, right? After the push-ups, you sit up and meditate for 10 minutes. After the meditation, you open your journal. While journaling, you write out your top three priorities for the day. And then as a reward at the end of that chain, you drink your coffee, right? It's just an example. I'm not saying that that's what your morning needs to look like. I'm just saying it's just as an example, that's what a habit chain starts to look like. But again, the idea is consistency over intensity, right? Like it's just to be consistent and do one thing at a time. We're not trying to stack 20 habits all at once. You're trying to find ways to add little habits to your routine and just be consistent at it. That's it. So again, radical ownership, clarity, vision, identity, and consistency with habits or habit stacking. So number four, we're almost over. But number four is delayed gratification. This is a huge one. This principle is one that I honestly believe separates people who build lasting wealth and between people who stay stuck. Because again, if you're constantly looking for instant gratification, it's not about suffering. That's not what I'm talking about here. It's about depriving yourself. And this is about understanding the actual game that we're playing. So everything is a trade-off, right? The fundamental truth underneath is that this principle is that every decision we make is a trade between your present self and your future self. Comfort now or a better life later. Easy now or freedom later. The quick win or the compounding result. So you rarely get both, and the sooner you make peace with that, the more intentional you'll become with every choice you make. Your brain is literally working against you here. And this is what, like, it took me a little bit to kind of understand. Like, your brain is literally working against you. Dopamine, our primary reward chemical, it favors instant gratification. So if it wants the reward immediately, and that's why junk food tastes like sugar tastes amazing. Social media is addictive. Why it feels better to watch TV than do the work. The immediate reward will almost always feel more attractive than the deferred one. But it's the deferred one, your future self, that's going to benefit the most from the delayed gratification. So and again, he calls it the identity signal, but here's how I reframe the delayed gratification in my own life. And it's slowly but surely changing my relationship with, my decisions and everything. Every time I choose a harder thing, every time I say no to the instant reward and yes to something like, putting a little bit extra work in, I'm sending a signal to you're literally sending a signal to yourself, telling yourself that I'm playing a longer game and that I'm someone who builds and someone who trusts the process even when I can't see the finish line. And those signals compound over time as we continue to do it. The signals compound over time. Self-trust is a big one. We talk about getting those little wins in every day, like even just waking up when you say you're going to wake up, or calling that person when you said you're going to call them. Like, those wins stack up and you're building trust with yourself. So trust builds confidence and builds your identity, and the compounds day by day. So every time you delay gratification, you're not just making a strategic choice, you're voting for your future self. And you're casting a ballot that says, hey, that person is real and I'm building towards that person. So anyways, that is essentially habit stacking and then delayed gratification. So we had radical ownership, you have clarity and identity, so vision, identity, habit stacking, delayed gratification, and then we get to our final, which is protecting your attention. And I'm curious on you know, the protecting your attention piece. This principle is protecting your attention is actually two interconnected ideas, but I'll just go through this relatively quick. The first is about actively training your attention towards what's good through a gratitude practice. This is how important this is to me now. We've talked about this before, Pansy, and I know how at least think I know how you feel about this, but having gratitude is more than just thinking about what's good in your life, right? I've got it to the point now where I literally bookend my day with it. So I wake up and really focus heavily on the things that I'm really grateful for in my life, right? Pansy, my business partner, is one of those things, right? My relationship with our friend James is another thing. Like, you can think of the things that you're grateful for in your life and what is really good with right now. And what it helps you to do is it helps you to focus instead of on the lack, because that's what everybody does. We always do this. We're always thinking about what we don't have and what we need to get in order to fill that hole of what we don't have. But when you shift it, and again, I do this in the morning and at night, it literally sets you up for the rest of the day, right? So we've talked about vitamin G before, and that's really what it is. It's gratitude. So really quick, it's not just it's not just positive thinking. It's literally and again, this sounds like motivational stuff, and it kind of is, but I get it. But I used to feel the same way, but again, how you think about it completely, gratitude is a cognitive performance tool, right? It's literally a brain training technique. And so, what's really happening in your brain without intentional intervention, your brain was not designed to be happy by default. It's designed to look for threats, right? It's designed to survive. So, it has to constantly scan for threats, gaps, dangers, problems. That's your default factory setting, which means left unchecked, your brain is essentially a negativity machine. always cataloging what's wrong, what's missing, what could go sideways. And here's what makes it worse. Most of us start our days feeding that machine. We wake up and immediately open our phones. We consume stress, outrage, problems, and other people's highlight reels. And our brain takes that as an assignment for the day, right? It goes, "Oh, we're hunting for problems, right? So I'm on it. Let me start hunting for problems." But with gratitude, it's a manual override. It cuts into that loop and deliberately stops that from your brain from focusing on that, especially first thing in the morning. So anyways, I wanted to that this part, the gratitude part, is so important to me now that I'm doing it literally on the beginning of my day and at the end of my day. And it does help. Like, sure, is there crap that's going to happen that I'm going to get upset about potentially during the day that's going to potentially throw me off? Yeah, if I let it. um and it does happen. Pansy will tell you.
There's more to the gratitude than just, oh, thank you. Like feeling like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm grateful for this person or grateful for that person,
Mhm.
whatever, or that thing, or, you know, I have a roof over my head, right?
Mhm.
It's about being grateful for every experience because one way or another, that helped shape us, whether it was we want to look at it as a good thing or a bad thing.
Mhm. Well, again, the gratitude is the manual override. Think of it that way for your brain. And again, I'm not saying that you do, gratitude and only when you have good things in your life. Like there's always, like, think about it this way. Our life, your life is somebody's dream life. Like literally somebody out there in the world who's in war, famine, you know, think about the people in some of these countries. Like your life is like a dream life for them. And so we can't find a way to find gratitude in our lives right
Is our
now.
life the dream life materialistically? Are you speaking of?
No, I'm just saying in general. Like somebody's living in war or famine or whatever. Your life is a literally a dream situation for somebody, right?
We can make it look that way. Sure.
What do you mean we can make it look that way?
Well, I'm just saying, people only want what they really don't know all about. They only want somebody else's life because they think the grass is greener on the other side.
Well, I guarantee you, even though you may not think so about
I'm not saying
your
I have a
life.
horrible life. I'm just saying, like, it probably looks better on the outside, right? Because
Mhm.
there's a lot that goes into having a certain lifestyle, whatever
Sure,
you choose.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I get what you're saying, but I would argue like the point is like without going too deep into the weeds on it, the point is there's always something to be grateful for. There's always something to look at your life and be grateful for despite everything that's going on. And that's a decision you can make. And it's a way to train your brain to focus on those things instead of looking for problems and living in a lack mindset, right? Because that's what our brains do by default. That's the point. So the shift isn't just in the morning. The shift can happen during the day too. I bookend my day with it. I try and do that literally every single day. I built it into basically a habit at this point. But it literally is. And yeah, from James too, such a great way to prime yourself before the day starts. But again, it doesn't have to be in the morning time. It can be, you could have it be after lunch, you know what I mean? But ideally I'd want it to start my day that way because it really does prime the rest of your day. So it's, for me, it's really important in the morning time to get up and do that. um but that's it. Again, radical ownership, clarity and vision. Identity is a big part of that one. Habit stacking, and what's my number four? Delayed gratification. And then finally, protecting your attention through gratitude, right? And we've talked about that before. But again, of all of this stuff, we've talked about these things before, but the biggest things for me right now, and I just want to share this before we end this, but the biggest thing for me right now, one is the gratitude piece in this. And then also the vision part, like literally being so freaking clear. I'm not talking about the business. Like you can have a clear vision of your business. I'm talking about the life you want, having a clear vision of that place, because that helps pull me towards doing the things that need to be done and gives me the motivation to do it. So those are, if you take anything from this episode, those are the two things. So, but that's it. So, anyways, it's 6:30 right now my time, so we've been at it for about an hour. Not quite as short as what I would have liked, but I really appreciate we both, Panz and I both appreciate all you guys. Anybody who's watching this after the fact, James, we appreciate you for being here. And yeah, we'll be back again next Friday with another episode of the Friends with Benefits podcast. But if you're listening, like and subscribe.